I always tell my Sri Lankan friends, when Narendra Modi ji came to Sri Lanka in 2019 versus 2025, if you look at India, India has added $1 trillion to its economy. This visit, in my mind, can be a turning point in economic relation between India and Sri Lanka if both the leaders decide to keep the agenda book away. I would say this whole conversation about CPA, which has now become ITCA, both countries must make sure that it gets closed soon. I believe there's a 14th round of negotiation going on. I think trade and business, in my mind, occupy center stage, especially in the context of where Sri Lanka is today. I always tell my Sri Lankan friends, when Narendra Modi ji came to Sri Lanka in 2019 versus 2025, if you look at India, India has added $1 trillion to its economy. India has gone from a 400 million middle class to a 550 million middle class. It's gone from reducing its poverty levels from 200 million to 70 million. It's gone from adding roads which are equal to 6.7 million kilometers, which is the highest road network in the world. So you have and it's consistently been the fastest growing economy in the world for years. So there's a huge opportunity for Sri Lanka with such a a dynamic economy in the neighborhood. And this visit, in my mind, can be a turning point in economic relation between India and Sri Lanka if both the leaders decide to keep the agenda book away and actually embrace something larger, which is embrace the economic partnership.
Santosh, regarding the areas which both the countries can come together in future, the areas which you see as a potential as well, can you talk to us about?
Yeah, I think huge areas, because see, I mean, I was reading a statistic of last week that Indians have contributed 36 billion US dollars worldwide as investments. I mean, actually, that's the kind of investments Indians are doing. Sri Lanka would have got $2 billion, which means the opportunity for the rest of large amount of that money coming to Sri Lanka is great, and we need to focus on that and try to get FDI from India. Even from a tourism perspective, which from my mind is a low-hanging fruit for Sri Lanka, while Indians constitute the largest number of tourists coming into Sri Lanka at 450,000, 30 million Indians travel around the world. So how come only 450,000 are coming to Sri Lanka? And that's a moot question that needs to be asked. How can we attract more Indian tourists? But my focus would be to actually make it high-quality tourists who spend $500, $600, $700 per night, not just the guy who comes and spends $100, $150 per night. So my intent would be target the high-value tourists from India, get them in, and give them the Sri Lanka experience and earn FDI from that. Of course, beyond those two things, there are many issues related to the structural issues related to the trade deficit that needs to be discussed in some detail. I mean, this whole thing that's just got announced this morning about the garment industry in Sri Lanka getting into turmoil thanks to the 44% tariff announced by the Trump regime provides an opportunity for India to step in and say, you bring the garments into India free of cost. I mean, without tariff free, which is quite a radical thought. But I think India too can extend its hands forward and make some rather bold, recommendations and ideas.
Santosh, do you have any trade numbers in mind which you think that both the countries can come together and achieve that? If any trade numbers you have?
No, so to be honest, not really. My numbers on the bilateral trade overall is I can't genuinely recall, because I was rather looking at the bigger picture, because I do think that there are some significant structural and policy issues that needs to be resolved, and then the numbers will happen automatically. So for me, it's not just about following or running after a number, but it's about getting that intent right, getting the spirit right, and believing that Sri Lanka and India can benefit each other economically. I would say this whole conversation about CPA, which has now become ITCA, both countries must make sure that it gets closed soon. I believe there's a 14th round of negotiation going on. To me, India can't be seen as competing with Sri Lanka, in the sense that, when you're having these negotiations, you can't look at Sri Lanka as a competing power and try to negotiate a better deal. We need to be disproportionately favorable towards Sri Lanka. In my mind, we need to say, what do you need? We can help you with it. I mean, I'm being idyllic, but maybe I'm here in Sri Lanka for 20 years, so, I have the best interests of Sri Lanka in mind. But I do think some rather bold steps like that need to be taken on the economic front for the relationship to get closer.